Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first info session regarding the second call for proposals on the public sector loan facility. I hope you can hear us very well. My name is Lucie Žáčková and I am head of unit in CINEA Unit B2, which is responsible, among others, for the public sector loan facility program. And I'm here with my colleagues from DG REGIO, from the European Investment Bank, and from CINEA. So warm welcome to all of them. This morning we will have more or less 3 hours to inform you and to give you information about the public sector loan facility, about the scope, about the criteria, about the examples, and also how to apply. So maybe if we can look at the agenda, I will quickly pass you through. So we will hear a message from the General Director of DG REGIO, Mrs. Themis Christophidou. And afterwards, Sabine van der Motten, sitting next to me, she is Deputy Head of Unit in DG REGIO. She will give you presentation about the main features of the public sector loan facility grant component. And because this program is a blending instrument combining the grants and the loans from the European Investment Bank, we have Matteo Lechner, who is sitting there, welcome, who will indeed give you presentation about the main features of the loan component of this program. And then we will give you a flavor of what kind of projects can be supported by the program. So we will provide you some examples of the grants which have been awarded under the first call of proposals. And then we will go into more practical part of the morning. We will have presentation about how to apply for the grant, which will be given by Isabel Jagiello, sitting on the right from me. She's head of sector in CINEA. And then we will have presentation about how to submit the proposal in the EU funding and tenders portal, which will be given by Daria Taurisano. Welcome. Followed by the very practical information how to fill simplified business plan and financial information file. This will be given by Gauthier Cla. Welcome, Gauthier, who is sitting on the very right from me. And then, before we follow with the question and answer sessions, we will also have presentation by Borislava Gabrovska, sitting on the very left. Welcome. She works as a senior finance advisor in the European Investment Bank, and she provides information about what kind of support you can receive from the advisory hub, both for preparing the loan application and the grant. So that will be at the end, and then we will have a possibility to answer some of your questions. We did receive already several questions in advance of this session, so we will try to reply to them. And also, during the morning, you have a possibility to submit a question via Slido. Maybe we can look at the slide which shows the code. So please, if you want to submit question in the course of this morning, you can do so with the code hashtag PSLF InfoDay, or you can scan the QR code which you see on the screen. So we will have time to reply to some of the questions during the meeting. If we will not be able to reply, we will do so later on in writing. So without further delay, I suggest we jointly hear the message of Mrs. Christophidou.
Dear managing authorities, dear applicants, dear stakeholders and partners, welcome to this Info Day dedicated to the public sector loan facility. The transition to a climate-neutral economy is a pressing issue which affects us all. This transition is utterly necessary, and in the long term, it is a great opportunity. For example, it has been estimated that 2 million new jobs will be created across Europe in recycling, in renewables, in deep renovation, and in other aspects of the green economy. But the transition has also profound consequences, changing how we live, work, commute, and build our houses and our neighborhoods. The transition has a particular impact on certain regions and communities. And this is just one of the factors radically reshaping the global economic landscape. We also face increasing global competition, increasing security needs in an increasingly hostile geopolitical environment, and of course, demographic changes, including brain drain, meaning that we must make the most of the skills of our young people. In the face of all these changes, regions and communities need help to adapt. It will be a long journey, and the public sector loan facility is an important part of this effort. Indeed, many of you here today are already part of this effort. We have already signed grant agreements totaling 200 million euros. These are part of a broader investment of over 2 billion euros, including EIB loans and investments by beneficiaries. The impact is already being felt, from sustainable housing to public transport, from innovative heating and cooling projects to community building, and also investments in economic diversification, including energy efficiency, healthcare, culture, tourism, and many more. The results so far prove the value of the PSLF model. The simplified funding mechanism and the advisory support have been key success factors. They increase the uptake and the quality of projects, setting them up for success. The PSLF is also achieving its goals on gender equality. Women account for 50% of the jobs created by signed grant agreements and for 52% of the individuals reached by the signed PSLF projects. With all these successes in mind, it is time to take the next step. This is why I'm glad to open this Info Day. The second call for proposals was launched in October, and we have a substantial budget for grants, 630 million euros, with funding extended to 2027. Today, you will receive comprehensive guidance on call requirements and how to access advisory support. This is a golden opportunity, and I encourage you to make the most of it. Asking questions, exploring opportunities, engaging with the wealth of experts and practitioners here today. The climate transition is not easy, nor quick, but with the right support, it can be a success. Regions and communities across Europe are counting on us, so let us continue the good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I think we can go straight to the, let's say, a bit more introductory remark from me. I would like to just quickly go through what we do in CINEA, which is the Climate Infrastructure Environmental Executive Agency, and also I will give you a bit of the summary what we have achieved so far with the public sector loan facility with the first call for proposals, which is ending this year. So for those of you who do not know, CINEA is the executive agency of the European Commission, and we are currently managing over 65 billion euro in 7 different programs. We have more or less 4,100 projects ongoing, and we are more or less 600 colleagues. On the next slides, you can indeed see what kind of programs we manage. So I will not go through all of them, but just you can see Just Transition Mechanism Public Sector Loan Facility. So the program, which is subject of the Info Day today, is among the 7 programs, but it's not the biggest one. We have actually other programs, Connecting Europe Facility, which is the biggest one, Innovation Fund, LIFE Program, European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, Horizon Europe, and Renewable Energy Financing Mechanisms. And just that you are aware that this is what we do, and Sabine will later on explain a bit the division of tasks between the different entities of the European Commission and also with the European Investment Bank as regards PSLF program. Now, going to the results of the first PSLF call for proposals, which is ending at the end of this year. So we have received since the beginning of the program in 2021, we have received 73 proposals, and we were able to sign so far 13 grant agreements for the amount of almost 200 million euro in grants. We have 6 grant agreements under preparation, which we hope to sign in the coming weeks, and these would amount over 36 million euro in grants. And we also have 24 proposals from 12 different member states, which were submitted under the last cutoff, which finished in September. So we are currently in evaluations. And this was actually the biggest cutoff, so the biggest submission we had in the whole first call. And the amounts requested are almost 280 million euro. The big difference in the first call for proposals compared to the second one is that in the first call, we had the so-called national allocation. So that means that member states had pre-allocated amounts they could be drawing from the facility. And we have actually 3 member states which were able to do so. That was France with the 76.5 million euro, Spain with 59.3 million euro, and Sweden with 10.6 million euro. You can see also in the pie chart how much of the 13 grants signed so far, how much is the EIB component. So we have the EIB contribution to these 13 projects of over 800 million euro. And then we also mobilize, or not we, but the grants mobilize additional public and private financing of almost 1.3 billion euro. So as you see, this is a substantial amounts of budget which are going into those grant agreements. And now for the second call for proposals, so which has been indeed published on 23rd of October on the funding and tenders portals. You have the link also on the slides. We have 630 million euro for the grants available to all EU member states. And as I mentioned before, there are no pre-allocated national allocations. That means that it's a competitive basis, and the best proposals, of course, will have a chance to be selected no matter from which member state they come. We have 4 intermediary submission cutoff dates. The very first one is 27th of January next year. You have then the next one, 16 April, 17 September. So we have 3 cutoff dates in 2026. And the last one, the 4th cutoff day on 16 February 2027. So please take good note of the dates, not to miss the deadlines. And we have, as we had in the first call, we have 2 distinct call topics, depending on the type of the EIB loan. So we have one topic, standalone projects, and one is for the framework loans. I would give a floor now to Sabine van der Moten, who will give you an overview of the main features of the public sector loan facility. So please, Sabine.
Yes, thank you, Lucy, and welcome to everybody in this info day on the publication of the second call for the public sector loan facility. I will indeed give you a quick overview of what PSLF is and the grant part of it more particularly. So the PSLF, so the public sector loan facility, is the 3rd pillar of the Just Transition mechanism. So the first pillar, as you might know, is a Just Transition Fund, and the second pillar is the InvestEU dedicated Just Transition Scheme. The purpose of the public sector loan facility is to leverage the public financing. It's important to mention that the just transition mechanism and the 3 pillars are actually governed by the territorial just transition plans. So this implies that the project should benefit the territories that are identified in those plans and also the sectors that are identified in those plans. The projects don't have to be located in those territories, but they have to benefit the territories in those plans. Sorry. And how they benefit the territories identified in the plans should in the proposals be very well explained. Also important to mention that the scope of the PSLF is a bit wider than what we finance under the Just Transition Fund, so there are more possibilities under the public sector loan facility. So as it's mentioned already by Lucy, the public sector loan facility is a blending facility. This means that we have a grant and a loan component which are very closely linked because the grant is a fixed percentage of the loan component. So the grant component is managed by the Commission and the executive agency CINEA. The loan component is managed by the EIB. So what is the Commission doing? So we adopt the work programs and we evaluate together with the colleagues of CINEA all the proposals that are submitted in the submission deadlines. CINEA well, they organize the call, they evaluate together with us, they adopt the award decision, they sign the grant agreements, they monitor the implementation of the projects, and we also together we manage communication actions. So the daily management is rather done by CINEA, policy orientation is done by DG REGIO. The European Investment Bank, then on their side, they evaluate the loan application, so it's a parallel process. They prepare and manage the financing agreements and they monitor the loan, but Matteo will go a bit more into detail about this. Overall, the budget of the project budget is around 6 billion, so that of additional resources that can be mobilized. So the grant component is 1.3 billion overall, so this includes also the first call. 630 million is remaining for the second call. The EIB, they will provide up to between 6 to 8 billion in loans. So in total, we will mobilize around 13 to 15 billion of public investments for the facility over the entire period. So what are the main features? So it's mentioned already. So the grant is a financing not linked to cost grant. So this means that the grant is a fixed percentage of the loan, which is 15 or 25%. So 25% is for the projects located in less developed regions. So the grants cannot be disbursed before the EIB financing agreement is signed. So this is a very important element also. The loan has to be there. If there is no loan, there is no grant. The geographical scope, well, in the first call, we had the national allocations, as already explained by Lucy, and some are completely used up. This is not the case anymore in the second call, so there are no reserved national allocations anymore. So what does this mean? That the 630 million available in grants will be allocated to all the projects which will then get a ranking. So the projects with the highest ranking will be financed first, and so on. The beneficiaries are public sector entities. This can also be private law bodies with a public service mission. maybe a question that we get very often, because member states are used to work on a shared management with DG REGIO. There is no specific role for the managing authorities under the PSLF, so any public entity can apply for the grant and for the loan. So the remaining budget, as said already, is 630 million. So this is the grant component, which is in the percentage of the loan. And then last but not least, there is also a budget available of up to 35 million for advisory. So Borislava will explain a bit more what is available under advisory. But this is rather important. It can help you to prepare the projects, but also to implement the projects. So I would really advise you to make use of it. So we mentioned already several times the territorial just transition plans. So here you see the map of the territories in just transition plans, so those that should benefit from the project financed by the PSLF. You can consult them, you see the link on the screen, and I think the presentations will be made available afterwards. And you can also find the link on the CINEA website. And then the last slide on my side. So the PSLF is there to address the challenges deriving from the transition towards the Union's climate targets. The eligibility sectors are really very broad. So there is a huge list of eligible sectors. But your projects, if you want to submit a project, you first have to look in the territorial just transition plans to see if this sector is covered and foreseen in the territorial just transition plan. And then, as I said, they have to benefit the territories identified in the plans. So this is all on my side. Thank you for your attention, and I pass the floor to Matteo from the EIB. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sabine. Wait, now maybe you hear me better. Yes, so thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Sabine, for your comprehensive presentation on the grant component. Now we go through the loan component that is actually a quite substantial part of this initiative. Once again, just a short presentation. My name is Matteo Lechner. I work for the Institutional Mandate Division in the EIB, in the Operations Department. So the bank is partnering up with the Commission now for 3 years to implement this blending mandate, and I'll take you through the features of the loan. Just to say, the EIB, European Investment Bank, is the EU bank, so the bank of the member states, and is supporting substantially public sector projects across Europe. Is this working? Yes, it does. So the EIB is headquartered in Luxembourg, but so we cover from Luxembourg public sector counterparties across the Europe, as I said. And is it, if I stay a bit farther away, is it okay? Still? Yeah, good. Yeah, otherwise. And the EIB Operations Department, headed by Jean-Christophe Lalou, and in particular for public sector, Gilles Badot, has a number of loan officers that are charged to contact counterparties and take inquiries in terms of loan requests. And we elaborate loan requests on demand as they come. And we have a very structured approach to it. So we do a financial due diligence and we do a technical due diligence for each project that is presented to the bank. You find the bank, as I said, in Luxembourg, but also around Europe with our external offices. And also you can find out more about the bank through the eib.org website. And this is just to let you know where we are, then how to get a loan. Indeed, the EIB acts as the sole financing partner, implementing partner of the PSLF mandate. So starting a loan appraisal or starting a loan request, at least, I mean, sending a loan request to the EIB is the first step, I would say, as a mandatory one to access this facility, this mandate. As I mentioned before, we assess projects, so we go through a technical appraisal, we need a structured investment plan in place, and what we do normally is to address the costs of this investment plan, and we normally, by statute, finance up to 50% of these costs through a loan. For the specific mandate, our board of directors agreed to go beyond this percentage as an exceptional measure for the EIB priority cohesion regions. You'll find more, as you see in the footnote, in the EIB website, and the EIB is committed. One of its policy objectives is, of course, to support cohesion, and therefore a higher, let's say, weight on cohesion projects is put on the EIB lending. Just to go through a little bit the project cycle and the grant application that, as Sabine mentioned, these are parallel processes, but they touch among each other. And basically, we have quite a number of touching points through the process. So basically, the EIB should be contacted as early as possible, as I mentioned before. We need to have an idea of what the project is, what the loan amount is going to be, in order to deal with CINEA and with DG REGIO, as the grant provided is a percentage of the loan amount. As you see, the EIB project cycle is quite structured, basically. So when we get into step 2, so we start the appraisal process. That's when we know that the project is quite well defined, and therefore we can easily provide CINEA and DG REGIO the amount of loan that we are supposed to be given. And then once the appraisal is finished and the EIB loan is approved, basically we are again in touch with CINEA, and we provide the final amount of the loan that is approved. And once the grant agreement is then signed, we try to provide the information that also the loan agreement is signed, so that the grant can be disbursed. But Isabel will go through this one further on. It's very important, and Bodislav is here with us today, also advisory, because advisory supports in the preparation and also in the implementation of projects. Therefore, you should have access to advisory as soon as possible in order to prepare well for projects under PSLF. Just here in this slide, we provide a quick overview of the financial products that the EIB can market and that are available to public sector clients, and that can be available also can be eligible basically also for PSLF. So the first one is the most standard one, let's say, is an investment loan that is typically for larger projects that are standalone and quite mature, with project costs starting at 25 million. As I said before, the institutional stance of the EIB is to finance 50% of it, but we can go beyond. Anyway, these are, as I said, suitable for mature investment streams, which are normally promoted by a single counterparty. It can be different case by case, but normally there is one project promoter that applies for a loan and that implements that loan. Then we pass to the other product, is a framework loan. Framework loan is typically for large multi-sectorial, multi-year investment programs, whereby we have a number of schemes in these, and these schemes are not implemented all at the same time or are mature enough to be individuated immediately. Therefore, this is very, I would say, suitable for a certain type of bodies that have these multi-year investment plans. So the project cost, again, here can start from 25 million, but normally this is a tranche that is eligible for PSLF lending, because normally framework loans are much bigger than this. And the loan amount, as I said, is starting as a, is dealt with a 50% limit or beyond if in EIB priority cohesion regions. Sub-projects here, or investment schemes, very important, can be also very small, but altogether in aggregate, they have to amount to a certain limit, which I would say could be the limit that we see for intermediated lending, so at least 2 million of overall project costs. And the specificity of this is that we can have one or more borrowers or final beneficiaries of the loan. So there can be potentially one borrower that on-lends to parties that then implement the project. These are, by design, called coordinated framework loans. And this is a specificity that we also agreed with our colleagues of DG REGIO, that to actually benefit much smaller counterparties that would not have a large framework loan available or would not have enough creditworthiness to access an EIB loan by their own. So a larger coordinator would make the job for them, and they could still benefit from the PSLF grant. The last one, the last product, is intermediated lending. This is, as the words say, indirect lending, so done through financial intermediaries. These financial intermediaries can be public or private. This is not an issue about their nature, basically. And here we have sub-projects financed, indeed, by the intermediary, not directly by the EIB, but through resources given by the EIB through the intermediary. And these projects are small, I would say, of minimum 2 million euros and up to 25 million euros, given the specificities of the multi-beneficiary investment loan that we normally market. But we not only operate through MBIL, as we call them, but we also operate through intermediated framework loans, which has the scheme, as I mentioned before. So here, normally what happens is that the intermediary is not the grant applicant, but the application is directly done by the project promoter or sub-project promoter, as I mentioned. It's important that before the sub-project promoter applies for the grant, a loan agreement or a loan commitment is provided by the financial intermediary. This is very important for the successful say, appraisal of the application. Here, just a very quick overview of our lending commitment in phase 1 of PSLF that just finished, basically. And considering the last cutoff date that is not yet fully appraised, but we can see in the graph we have a number of countries, and basically the total loan amount associated with grant appraisals or grant applications as of now is around 3 billion euros. So we are basically halfway of our commitment to finance at least 6 billion. And the number of loans that we have retained, given also the results of the grant applications, is 42. We provide a split of, let's say, financial product types. Investment loans, as you see, is the majority. And as I mentioned before, this is the typical EIB product for public sector projects. We have 72% of the loan share. Framework loans is also quite substantial, 27%. And the intermediated lending, so far we only have one active project in Czech Republic, and provides for 1% of the overall lending amount. We hope to have more, but still, this is the situation to date. And now I'll pass the word to Isabel, I think, or Lucy, for the examples. There you go.
Thank you, Sabine and Matteo. Indeed, so now I think we will jointly give you a bit the idea what kind of projects have been so far supported under the public sector loan facility, so those which were selected under the first call for proposals. And as Sabine already mentioned, the scope of the PSLF is rather broad, and you can see it on the slide. We can support sustainable mobility, so this can be railway infrastructure, cycling infrastructure, rolling stock, multimodal platforms, transport digitalization. We have a number of projects there in total. In fact, this is the biggest, let's say, budget which has been devoted to, so over 80 million euro went to sustainable mobility elements or projects. We have also social infrastructure components in number of grant agreements. This can be healthcare facilities, sport facilities, social housing, infrastructure for education, and lifelong learning. So again, number of projects there, including the biggest grant agreement we have so far in Spain. Urban renewal also quite popular, I would say. This could be urban infrastructure projects, circular economy, public utilities, urban regeneration, cultural, let's say, regeneration, historical regeneration of the historical sites. And then last but not least, energy efficiency. We have a number of projects, and you will see one in a moment, in district heating, supporting renewable energy, renovation and conversion of buildings. Underneath, you see also the links to the individual grant agreements. So if you are interested to also get to know a bit more in details these different grants which are at the moment ongoing, you can click on the links and you will be able to get to the relevant project fishes. But now we will present very quickly, jointly with Matteo and Borislava, what kind of projects you could do, also to go a bit more details, and how the, let's say, the loan component and the grant component come together. So the first project we would like to show you is the projects in Netherlands, in Helland. It concerns development of the 6 new geothermal wells. It concerns also expansion of the 5th generation heating and cooling grid infrastructure. And the aim is to connect 10,000 house equivalents to the grid. The project is managed by a private beneficiary with a public service mission. So this is one of the examples of the private beneficiaries. It's a project which started in February this year and will last for 5 years. The overall budget is 180 million euro, and then the grant amount is 13.5 million euro, which represents 15% of the EIB loan. So here the example shows that the contribution to just transition is mainly to provide clean, affordable heating and cooling solutions, so to reduce fossil fuel dependence and create local green jobs in a historically coal-dependent region. And I would give the floor to Matteo to give you a bit about the loan component of this project.
Yes, so about the loan component, this is an investment loan, so it's a very typical type of loan support that we provide to these counterparties, in particular when we have a well-identified project like this one, so with a technical, let's say, a good technical basis, identified project cost basis, and a timeline for implementation. In terms of timeline for implementation, what the EIB does in its technical due diligence, it appraises the economic life of a project. Therefore, in this case, we are talking about district heating solutions. Therefore, it has quite a long economic life. Therefore, we are providing a 15 years loan with a 5 year pre-amortization, which means that this pre-amortization allows for construction, testing, and mise en travail, how do you say, for this type of projects. And here we provided a loan share of the overall cost, about 50%. the loan was signed in November 2024, and from the time that the loan was started appraisal, so the actual, let's say, evaluation phase of the project by the EIB technical service and financial due diligence to the approval, it took 9 months. If you want to know more about this project, you can go to our eib.org webpage, and you just tap into the project section and you find the project fact sheet of this project and other projects. Here we provided the link, so you have all the information that you can have publicly available.
Indeed, and also the project fact sheet regarding the grant component is also under the link, which is on the left-hand side of the slide. The second project, very quickly, we would like to present you is the socio-economic transition of Western Macedonia. So this is a project in Greece, in Western Macedonia region. The project which is running since November 2023 for 36 months. And here it's a multiple, let's say, scope, because it includes both road upgrade, energy upgrades of municipal street lighting, energy efficiency, renewable energy integration in public buildings. It also concerns social infrastructure and cultural infrastructure. So here you see it's a multiple sector project, and it's actually the first grant agreement which we have awarded under the facility. The grant amount is 14.5 million, which is 25% of the loan, because Western Macedonia is less developed region. And it's managed by Western Macedonia region, so these are public entities. It's a public entity project. And the contribution to just transition is to indeed address the interconnected social, economic, and environmental challenges of the region, which has been historically reliant on the coal, ignite, and heavy industry. Matteo, for you.
Yes, thank you. So here we have a perfect example of what I mentioned before. So a framework loan, which is basically serving a number of schemes with different sectors and different investment, let's say, streams indeed. And basically, we can provide here more than 50%. And okay, we have other limitation, but in this case, we provided up to 72% of total project cost, total eligible project cost. And the loan amount goes up to 58 million euros with a very, very long tenor. In this case, 25 years is about the maximum that the EIB can provide, with 7 years of pre-amortization. So this is to allow the promoter to say, put together the relevant schemes and implement such schemes with a wide enough construction period, for example, therefore, and amortization schedule of the loan, given that these are infrastructure projects mostly, and they have a much longer economic life. It took a relatively short amount of time, but normally for framework loan, it is as such. So it took 7 months from appraisal to approval. And here again, I invite you to check our eib.org website, where you find all the details for this project. I'll leave it to Borislava to talk about the advisory actions.
Thank you, Matteo. So our advisory support was focused predominantly on the project implementation and an overarching capacity building element throughout the entire cycle of the loan appraisal, the grant application, and subsequently the implementation during the procurement, for example, and construction phase of these projects. We've supported also the preparation of the PSLF grant application. So it's a nice package of different advisory tasks that we will be able to share with you later on when I give you the overview of the advisory offer.
Okay. So the last project we would like to shortly present you is a project in Czech Republic in Ústí nad Labem region in the city of Děčín, and it concerns energy and resource efficiency upgrades in 60 municipal buildings, as well as replacement of the lighting with more, let's say, modern LED technology and installation of a building management system. So here the grant has been awarded in May of last year. Sorry, it was awarded this year, but the project started in May of last year. The grant is 384,893 euro. It's 25% of the loan. As I said, it's Ústí nad Labem region, which is less developed region, so that's why it's 25%. And the contribution to the just transition is to promote energy efficiency and renewable energy investments to support the transition towards a low carbon economy. And the beneficiary is a public entity, it's the city of Děčín. Matteo, over to you.
Thank you. So this one is a sub-scheme or sub-financing under an intermediated lending structure, which means that basically we have a larger loan signed with the intermediary. In this case is NRB, is the National Promotional Bank of Czech Republic. And under this larger loan, we have the duty, basically, or the role of allocating smaller intermediate loans that are eligible under what we have agreed as a main guideline with the intermediary. In this specific context, the loan, of course, was eligible under PSLF, and we have the pre-allocation here from a technical side to address the technical points for us that were relevant. And then this is basically up to the financial intermediary to follow up with all the contractual elements that are needed to get to the financial closing of the loan. The loan itself then is validated by us, as I mentioned, and in terms of grant process and the touching points, we were able indeed to get the information that the sub-financing was signed and communicate to our colleagues in CINEA so that they could proceed with the grant disbursement. Here you find the overarching structure, so the larger framework that can intake these smaller loans in the EIB website. And indeed, I mean, one of these, this is the only basically multi-beneficiary investment loan that we have now active for PSLF, and we look forward to have many more in the near future.
Good morning to all participants who have joined us this morning. As you have heard for the first part of the info session, which focused most on the policy framework, the legal framework, but also the different EIB products available and concrete examples of projects that are now under implementations and have been selected under the public sector loan facility. Now we are going to focus on more technical aspects, basically on how to apply for a PSLF grant, but also later on by Daria and Gauthier on how to concretely prepare and submit your grant proposal, and also from Borislava on how to benefit from the EU Advisory Hub. So now if we focus on the application process, maybe I would like to start with a word of caution, or basically to draw your attention, especially for the applicants who have already applied under the first call of PSLF, or the ones who at least checked the first call document and the templates, that it is important that you actually check the call document related to the second call, and most importantly, that you use the templates and the document related to the second call, because some changes have been applied. So it is important in this process that you refer to the right document and the right templates available under the second call in the EU funding and tender portal. So how to apply for PSLF grant? Of course, you have to make sure that the call is open, and it is the case because the call was published on the 23rd of October. So now you can access all the information online. And as you were explained this morning, PSLF is a blending instrument where we have a grant component and a loan component. Therefore, we have a dual application process. And we have an application process for the grant component, and we have a different one for the loan component. These two processes are managed by different entities. So the grant component, as mentioned by Sabine earlier on, is managed by the European Commission and by CINEA, whereas the loan component is managed by the European Investment Bank. Concerning the application process for the grant component, so as we have mentioned, you have to submit your proposal through the EU funding and tender portal. It's an online application where there are different steps, and Daria will go after me through these different steps, followed by Gauthier as well for the financial information. Once you have submitted your proposal, and you have to submit it by a cutoff deadline, which is specified in the call document, you can choose one of the three cutoff dates mentioned for 2026. And if not in 2026, you also have cutoff dates in 2027. So you can decide when is the most appropriate time for you to submit your proposal. Once it is submitted, the cutoff call deadline will be closed, and we will assess all the proposals that have been submitted by a specific cutoff date. And this process, and I will go into more details afterwards, includes both checking the admissibility and eligibility of the proposals, and then if these proposals are admissible and eligible, they will basically undergo a more deep technical evaluation. And this process can take up to 3 months from the cutoff submission deadline. Then if these proposals are selected for funding, then we will enter into a next phase, which is the grant agreement preparation, where the successful applicants will be invited to basically prepare the grant agreement with CINEA colleagues. And obviously, if this process is successful, because as it was already mentioned several times this morning, without a loan, there is no grant. So we will not be able to process with the signature of the grant agreement if the EIB loan has not been awarded. As far as the EIB process is concerned for the loan component, it is in parallel to the grant application process. So basically, you have to enter into contact with the EIB to request a loan. And depending on the type of proposals you want to submit under PSLF, be it under standalone project topic or the framework loan topics, you basically have to make sure that you allow sufficient time to basically be able to put as much detail as possible in the in your proposal concerning the status of the loan. So as far as standalone projects are concerned, it's not a requirement that you need to already have the loan signed at the time you submit your proposal under the PSLF, for the PSLF grant. But for the framework loan, you need already to be quite advanced in the process of having secured this framework loan with the EIB. So that's the main difference between the two topics. Then, as far as the loan assessment is concerned for the EIB, it can take up to 18 months because the EIB uses its own procedures, its own rules, and checks a certain number of points. And then, of course, you are informed directly by the EIB or its financial intermediary if the loan then is granted. And the EIB also informs the Commission and CINEA about the final outcome of their due diligence. And then, of course, this leads to the signing of the financing agreement between yourself and the EIB or the financial intermediary. But this, as you can see, there is a bit of a difference in terms of the timeline. So, as I mentioned, the assessment for the grant proposal is a bit faster, but we will not be able to proceed and finalize the grant agreement preparations for the selected projects until we have received the confirmation from the EIB that the loan has been granted for your project. So now coming back to the evaluation of the proposals that are submitted for the grant component. As I quickly mentioned earlier, there are two steps. First, we check the admissibility and eligibility of each proposal. And what do we mean by this? For the admissibility, we basically check that the proposals have been submitted on time, meaning before the cutoff deadline. Then we also need to check that the proposals were submitted via the EU funding and tender portal. As I mentioned, it's an online application that you have to submit. And then also we have to make sure that your proposal is complete, readable, and drafted in one of the EU languages, because the facility offers the possibility to submit your project proposal in one of the EU languages. Although I must say, the call document is published in English and all the templates that you have to download from the EU funding and tender portal is also only available in English. Having said that, there are many e-translation tools available these days that you can basically use to translate these documents into your own language. Then, once the proposals are declared admissible, we checked their eligibility. And basically, the checks that we do concern the eligibility of the applicants, where we have to make sure that the applicants are public law bodies or private law bodies with a public service mission established in the EU. We also check that the proposals are within the scope of the call, meaning that they basically address the call objectives, the priorities, and the activities, the eligible activities mentioned in the call document and covered by the public sector loan facility. We also check that your project benefits a territory covered by an adopted territorial just transition plan. So you clearly have to demonstrate in your proposal that the project is clearly linked to a territorial just transition plan and that the activities covered by your projects are targeting the specific territories that are mentioned in this plan. Then we also check that the projects that you propose do not generate sufficient revenues and that a funding gap exists. And we also check that the calculations that you have made, because as we explained that for the PSLF without a loan, there is no grant. And as you have heard this morning, the grant is calculated as a fixed percentage of the loan, be it 15 or 25%. Therefore, we check that this has been correctly applied. We also check that the project duration falls within the recommended durations mentioned in the call document between 24 and 16 months. Of course, exceptions are allowed, but they need to be duly justified. So you have to make sure that you provide an explanation in your proposal if you do not fit within the recommendations. And then the last point that we check, of course, is you have in the application a section dedicated to basically declare if there is any other EU funding that you are receiving for the same project, for the same activities, for the same duration that you are proposing in your proposal. So that's why these points are important and they should be part of your checklist before you submit a proposal in the portal, to avoid, obviously, being considered inadmissible or ineligible. For all the proposals that have successfully then passed these admissibility and eligibility checks, they will be technically evaluated by evaluators, colleagues from DG REGIO and from CINEA. And basically, they will be evaluated against two award criteria. The first one is relevance and impact, and the second one is about the quality of the project and the proposal. So concerning the first award criterion, we basically check in more details how you have basically demonstrated in your proposal that the project that you are proposing is aligned with the call objectives, that it contributes to addressing development needs and priorities that were clearly identified in the territorial just transition plan under which your project falls, and that you have also addressed the significance of the grant, the insufficiency of revenues, and that there is a funding gap, that you have also clearly explained the environmental impact of your proposal, including the do no significant harm principle. We also make sure that you have substantiated your proposal, not just vague statements, that basically you have clearly identified the sources on which you based your information, and also that you any basically statement that you make in your proposal is justified also by the relevant indicators that we require for you to basically mention in your proposal. Then under the quality criterion, so we check that basically the way you have structured your project is coherent with the objectives of your project, that the different work packages, activities that are covered by your projects are well explained, that you have a clear implementation plan. And by this, we mean that there should not be incoherencies between the different parts of the application. So if you say that your project is due to start on a certain date and that the duration is for a certain number of months, we expect that same information to be found also in the Excel file, in the simplified business plan. This is an issue that we often find that there are incoherencies. So you need to make sure that all the information that you are mentioning in the different parts are aligned and coherent. We also check, obviously, the soundness, as I said, and the clarity of the implementation plan. We check if your project is subject to any permits, environmental impact assessments or to any public procurement procedures, that these procedures are clearly explained and that you explain the status at the stage you are either, it's preparation stage or they have already been secured. So the project is ready to start with the works. So as long as you provide a clear explanation of where you are at in terms of technical and financial maturity as well. We also check the information concerning the structure that you have put in place in order to implement your project, the communication strategy that you will develop to ensure the EU visibility concerning the project if the grant is awarded, and also some information about the maintenance and the sustainability strategy, basically that you will guarantee that after the grant has been granted, once the project has been fully implemented, that there will be some kind of maintenance and sustainability ensured. And we also check the operational capacity of the applicants, and I will come back to this just after this slide. Then, obviously, as now this is open competition, no longer based on national envelopes, the importance of the bonus points may be even more crucial, because obviously if we have a ranking list with ex-aequo proposals having obtained the same score, and depending on the budget available, if it comes to that point where we have to make a more precise selection, that's where the bonus points will come to play. And here we have 3 bonus points. So the first one concerns the project located in less developed regions, and they get an additional 5 points if this is the case. Then the second bonus points concern projects contributing directly to the achievements of the EU climate and energy targets and to the objective of climate neutrality, where they get an additional 3 points if indeed they address this in the proposal. And the last bonus point that we can grant concerns basically projects for which a decarbonization plan exists. And they get an additional 2 points for this. So, and we will go, if obviously we have to use these bonus points, we will actually, for ex-aequo proposals, take first the ones that concern less developed regions as the primary choice, and then if they are still ex-aequo, we will use the second bonus points and then the last bonus points. Now coming back on to the additional checks that we perform under the quality award criterion, we also check the operational capacity of the applicants. By that, we mean that we check that the applicants have the capacity to implement the projects that they are proposing, and that they have the know-how, the qualifications, the resources to implement the projects. And as part of the proposal, there are some mandatory annexes that we require. In particular, we ask, for instance, for the list of previous projects that you have implemented. And these are important to demonstrate your capacity to manage projects of the same side, in the same sector, or that you have already experience of managing EU funding projects. We also require, for instance, that the activity reports of the last year is also submitted for private bodies. And in case we basically assess that an applicant doesn't have the right operational capacity, we may, of course, for these applicants, they should request advisory support from the InvestEU Advisory Hub. Then we also check that indeed the applicants have sufficient resources to implement the project and to bring their own resources, because PSLF grant is only co-funding a part of the project, not the full cost of the project. Therefore, we have to make sure that the applicants have sufficient resources on their side to implement the projects. So this is done as part of the quality criterion assessment. Then if you are successful and the proposal is selected for funding, during the grant agreement preparation, we will also check your financial capacity. So we check it for the private bodies. We don't do it for public bodies and international organizations. And you will be requested through the systems. There is a participant register in the systems where you will be directly asked by the relevant services of the Commission to upload a certain number of documents like your profit and loss account, the balance sheet, a business plan, an audit report approved by an external auditor that you will have to upload. And then the relevant services of the Commission will do their assessment and conclude whether or not your financial capacity is good, acceptable, or if it's considered weak. And if it is the case, then additional mitigation measures will be put into place. You can actually do yourself this assessment in the EU Funding and Tender portal. There is a lot of information available explaining the methodology that we use to do this financial capacity check that you can do yourself to see how you would score. And coming to my last slide, this is a recap of basically the scores that we allocate. So the minimum scores that you need to obtain in order to be considered eligible and to be selected for funding. So as you can see, for the two award criteria for relevance and impact and quality, the minimum is 6 and then the maximum is 10. And then for the bonus points, as I have mentioned, then you get additional points, so either 5, 3, or 2, depending on which bonus you actually manage to meet. So you can get a minimum score of 12 of 30 if you meet all the bonus points. Now I will pass the floor to my colleague Daria, who will take you through how to submit a PSLF proposal in more details.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Daria Taurisano, and like some of the previous speakers, I also work for CINEA, the Climate Infrastructure Environment Executive Agency. And today I will give you a presentation which will explain to you what are the different steps in order to prepare a proposal, and I will share with you some good practices, tips and recommendations, and hopefully this will help you to be successful in your submission. As was already mentioned by Isabelle and also by Lucie this morning, for what concerns the grant component, there is a portal which is the only tool, the single entry point for all the funding and tenders managed by the Commission, and you are requested to use the funding and tenders portal in order to prepare and submit your application. In this slide, on the left side, there is a screenshot of the portal, and on the right side, there is a screenshot that shows to you what are the specific filters that you need to use in order to find the PSLF call. the program. It is a just transition mechanism, and this is one important element that you need to select in order to very quickly find the call. In this slide, on the green area, I have also included two very useful links. The link that give you the access to the call document, and the link that give you access to the call page. So you don't need to search, you can just use this link. Here we highlight that in this call we have two topics. This was already mentioned by Isabel. So the first topic will target the projects financed through framework loans, and the second topic targets individual projects that qualify for a loan from the EIB or one of its financial intermediaries. You need to select one of the two topics in order to continue for the preparation of your proposal. In the funding and tender portal call page, you will find very useful information about the call. We already mentioned the deadlines. We have 4 deadlines, 4 cutoff days, and importantly, when you start the preparation of your proposal, you will receive some reminders in order to allow you not to miss the deadline. How to start the creation of a proposal? In the funding and tender portal call page, you will very easily find a button, and then after the selection of the topic, you can click on Start Submission. We said already that the funding and tenders portal, it is the only tool that you can use to be preparing your proposal. So I would like to highlight that we cannot accept any additional documents which is sent via email, or we don't accept any kind of paper application. Before creating a proposal, it is very important to keep in mind the 3 elements. First of all the applicants must have an EU login account. In this slide, there is the hyperlink. Second element, all the applicants must have a so-called participant identification code. And if some participants have already PIC, they should be able to retrieve it from the system, and if it is necessary, to update the information. In this slide, there is the link in order to create the EU login account. After the creation of the EU login account, then you can start with the creation of your participant identification code, and then you will be requested to give a short name for your organization. Once you have this code, which is a 9-digit code, and you have received the confirmation from the grant, then you can finally start the real preparation and creation of your proposal. In order to prepare your proposal, you need to create a project acronym, and in the green area on the top of the slide, on the right side, we have copied the structure that you need to use in order to prepare this acronym. It is also available in the call document, and we have stressed this information here because we have noticed often that the beneficiary, they make mistakes. So you should highlight the topic, the year of the submission, the country, the kind of project, standalone or framework loan, and provide a very short name for your project. There are examples in this slide that you can use for your preparation. Another important element that you should prepare at this stage is the creation of a short summary of the project, which will be in English. It should cover the scope, the goal, the objective, the location, and the key technical details and the planned financing. Once you have completed these steps, you can move forward. In the portal, you need to provide data about the contact partners. All the participants, coordinators, or associated partners or affiliated entities need to provide information. The project role is clearly explained in the call document, and the model grant agreement will also help you in order to prepare this information. It is not very complex. You have just to follow the question and answer. And I would like also to say that in our program, we have noticed that normally we have a consortium which are consisting of very few partners. So these administrative steps should not be very time consuming for you. Now we focus on the key elements, on the key components of the application. Our application will consist of 3 parts. There is part A, which is the administrative part, part B, which is the technical part, and part C that focus on the key performance indicators. So part A will need to be filled directly online. And you will have a tab. You can edit this tab, and you need to provide the administrative information, which are basically the project details, the applicants' names, and the budget of the proposal. First part, concerning the general information, you need to provide the proposal title and the duration of the project in months. This is a very important element that you need to clarify in part A, and I would like to remind you the duration of the project according to our call document should be between 24 and 60 months. In case projects have a longer duration, these need to be duly justified and will be assessed by the evaluators. Also, I would like to highlight that the project duration should not be confused with the reference period that covers the construction and the operational phase of the project, but this will be further clarified by my colleague Gauthier of the financial engineering team when he will present you the financial information file, also called calculator. In part A, you have also to indicate the budget. The table is very simple. In this section of this part A, you have just to enter the requested grant amount, and it should be in euro. So there is no reference to the EIB loan in this part, only the grant amount. However, as was already mentioned a few times, it is extremely important the coherence of data and figures. So the grant, as it is a fixed percentage of the loan, this should be calculated in the right way. It should be either 15 or 25% of the loan if the project is if it is in a project in a region in transition or in a less developed region, and the data should be coherent with what we have also in the financial information file calculator. Now we move forward with the next part, part B. there is an important difference. Part A was the administrative part that you had to fill in directly online, while for Part B, you have to download the templates from the portal, use the templates, fill in the templates, and upload again the templates in the portal in PDF format. It is important to use all the templates, which are mandatory, so make sure to use them. In this slide I listed the mandatory documents and templates, the description of action part B, which is the technical description. Then you have the financial information file calculator, the list of CV, the simplified business plan, the list of previous projects, and, if available, the decarbonization plan. In addition, for the private entities, you will need to upload also the annual activity report of the past year and documents which prove a public service mission. For instance, an investment act, a regulation, or a legal act, or a contract, or a concession agreement between the public authority and the private company to carry out service of general interest. Now, how to concretely draft and fill in Part B. You will see Part B, it is a template where there are questions that you need to answer. And one of the important questions that you will need to answer, it is how you will be able to demonstrate the relevance and impact of your projects. So I have presented here a few important aspects to take into account. You need to describe the alignment of the project with the territorial just transition plan. It is important to describe how the specific objectives of the project are based on a sound analysis, on a sound need analysis. You have to describe the contribution to the development needs and priorities described in the TJTP. The objectives should be clear, measurable, realistic, and achievable. And you have to take into account the introduction of quantified indicators. So you can provide KPIs like, for instance, greenhouse gas savings, number of people reached by the project, and number of direct jobs created. The data that you encode in Part B should be coherent with the data that you will be also encoding in Part C, and also with all the other documents of the application. You have to describe also the impacts of the project in addressing socio-economic and environmental challenges, describe how the gender balance and non-discrimination will be ensured by your project, and describe the measures to mitigate negative environmental impacts, for instance, energy efficiency measure, introduction of renewable energies, and greenhouse gas emission savings. Useful slide, this one provides an overview of the terminology that is important to keep in mind when you prepare your application. You will see the template make reference to work packages, which are main components of the project, somehow the big building blocks that group activities together. The activities are smaller components within a work package. Then you have the milestones, which are major control points that help to monitor the progress of the implementation of the projects in the future. And an example could be, for instance, the start of the construction works. After you have the deliverables, which are very important component for our program, they are the main project outputs. An example of a deliverable could be, for instance, a certificate of completion of works and entry into operation of the infrastructure. Why the deliverables are so important? Because our program, it is based on lump sums. So we will need to validate the deliverables and assess the completion of the work packages in order to proceed with the final payments. We don't need invoices. This is an important difference compared to some other programs where at the final stage of payment, it is important also to check the invoices. In Part B, it is important to provide a project design, which is coherent with the need analysis. It is crucial to provide information about the duration of the project timeline. So it is very important to fill in a Gantt chart, including a reference to a clear start date and end date of the project. As in our program, it is possible to finance retroactive project. It is important for you also to provide a justification regarding retroactive starting dates. We invite you in terms of structure of work packages to include at least one work package that focus on project management and communication, and the other work packages could be instead focusing on more technical activities. And we recommend to have several work packages in kind of very complex projects. Provide also a detailed risk matrix, describe the communication strategy, and for this program, we don't need to have any kind of table concerning subcontracting. And as mentioned already a few times, make sure that there is coherence of data across all the application documents. Now we move forward with Part C. Yes, Part C. This is the last part. Also in this case, the information needs to be filled in directly online. It is a very simple form with very few questions, but we have to answer all the questions. The first information that you need to give, it is about the location of the project, the country and the geographical location. Then you have to choose the framework loan or standalone project, and also select the sectors of your projects from the drop-down menu. In Part C, you will also see that it is required to provide information about the loan components, and you have to specify if the loan provider is the EIB or a financial intermediary, and the loan amount should be indicated in euros. Final part of the Part C, we are really reaching nearly the end of this presentation. It is concerning some other very important key performance indicators that you need to provide. And we have observed in the previous call with the previous applicants that sometimes this information is not provided in a very detailed way. So in this slide, I have highlighted in yellow the information that you are expected to provide. You need to provide quantitative data about the expected greenhouse gas emission savings, and if it is possible, you should use the same methodology of the European Investment Bank. And the link to the methodology is provided in our call document and also in the funding and tender portal. You have to indicate the number of permanent jobs created per gender, and also you have to specify the private financing without the EIB loan and the public financing without the EU grants, in order to allow us to have an overview of the financing and investment mobilized. That's all for Part C. Before I conclude my presentation, just a few other slides where I have summarized some checklists and recommendations. In terms of checklist, make sure before you submit your proposal that the proposal is complete and include all the documents and mandatory annexes. As was already mentioned by Isabel, the application can be submitted in any EU official languages. However, pay attention, you should use the standard templates which are in the funding and tender portal, and they are in English. You cannot translate the templates, you have to use the templates in English, but you can answer in your own language. In this slide also I listed again the key documents. Part A to be filled online, Part B to be uploaded, including the Gantt chart, list of CV to be uploaded, list of previous projects, it is to be included in Part B, in the template in Part B. And then you have the Part C that is to be also to be filled in online. And there is the financial calculator, a simplified business plan that will be presented by my colleague, and those two documents are really focusing on the financial elements of the investment. In addition, if you have the carbonization plan, don't forget to provide a link or upload the document in the proposal. And if you have other annexes which are relevant, like for instance a public service mission and other activity reports of the company, don't hesitate to upload the documents in the annex section of this page. In terms of a checklist, another couple of recommendations. Proofread your proposal to ensure that the proposal is clear and easy to follow, and explain issues, including the local context that may be evident to you, but not to the evaluators, because the evaluators can only assess your proposal on the basis of the provided information, so no assumptions will be made. Make sure that your proposal is complete and avoid to submit the application the very last day, because not only there are sometimes technical issues, but it is also important to know that when you have already submitted your application before the deadline, before the cutoff date, you can still access the application and make some modification. Only the final version will be taken into consideration. So you can already start encoding without waiting the very last few days. Recommendations are listed in this slide. As already we said, try to avoid any kind of vague statements. Underpin your statements with strong evidence and analysis, using documents that confirm your project information. Be realistic, and if you need help, don't hesitate to read our Q&A in the topic page that are providing a lot of very useful information and help, and they are based on the lessons learned from the previous call with the previous applicants. Very last slide, this one provides an overview of the useful resources that you can use in case you need help. You will receive this slide together with the presentation, and you can watch the recording after the info day, so you will be able to find all this information and also access the link that are included in this slide. And that's all from my side. I thank you very much for your attention. I wish you very good luck for the preparation of the proposal. And now I will give the floor to my colleague, Gauthier.
Thank you, Daria.
Presentation.
Thank you, Daria. Good morning to everyone. So next slide is probably, oops. I should go to slide next. Next is down.
Next.
Again, next.
I can help you.
Yeah, maybe. It's the upper button or the lower button? It's the lower button.
I can help you.
Yes, please. Good morning to everyone. So I'm Gauthier Clara. I'm a senior financial engineer at CINEA. And this morning I have the pleasure to take you through two important documents that are part of the application forms, namely the Simplified business plan and the calculator. For these two documents, you have templates in the application package. So what they are for? The Simplified business plan is a Word document, and the financial information file, the calculator, is in Excel. They serve to evaluate and confirm the eligibility condition with regard to the insufficiency of revenues. They also serve to assess the significance of the grant and the quality, including readiness, of projects. Both those templates were elaborated applying a one-size-fits-all approach. So they cover all sectors, they are applicable to all sectors, to standalone project, and project covered by framework loans as well. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with the calculator. Basically, the calculator is an Excel template that contains a series of tabs, and I want to stop there, just naming a few. So it starts with a notice that will explain how to fill the input sheets that follows and contain explanation of the main conceptual option retained, that we have retained. Then the next tab in this Excel is a budget table calculator, and it's used to calculate the grant amount requested. Then there is a series up to 15 similar input sheets that you can use to describe each of the projects constituting the application. So the idea here is to group projects by sectors, objective, and business models. You can do that. So please use a single tab only for homogeneous projects. If the projects are not homogeneous, that they varies in terms of business model, then use another input sheet. In this input sheet, you will need to document the investment costs, the operating expenses, and the revenues. There is also, at the end of this Excel table, a final tab, that is the financial analysis tab. It's a preset tab, so you don't need to input figures in that, but it will highlight the overall financial/commercial viability of all projects submitted. So it's a consolidated, this financial analysis is done on a consolidated basis for all the projects encoded under all the input sheets. Next tab, please. The calculator, I want to stop a bit on the financial analysis. The purpose is to calculate the financial net present value, FNPV, and we use this as a proxy to verify the insufficiency of net revenues, i.e., to what extent the net revenues cover the investment cost. So as I said, the calculator is comprised of 15 input sheets. Calculation in the financial analysis tab is done on a consolidated basis for all input sheets at the year of the application. Again, the advice is if you have different projects, please use different input sheets. We will review the FNPV on a consolidated basis, but if the projects are very different, then we will also consider let's say, the individual FNPV if it's required. Pay attention to the guidance in the notice tabs, notably with regard to already occurred CapEx. We have introduced some variants here to allow to encode existing CapEx or CapEx that have actually occurred prior to the application. It's important to read this notice tab in full before filling the other tabs. And also very important, at the end of each tab, of each input sheets, you have a comment box where you can, for example, explain options that you have retained, some parameters like the reference period, like the conversion rate if your application is not denominated in euro, and or just indicate a cross-reference to the free tabs. At the end of the Excel file, you have a free tab where that you can use for your own calculation. The advice here is not obviously to provide, let's say, hard-coded data, but also to explain with formula what is the economic rationale that you've used to explain and to encode data into the input sheets. Next slide, please. Then the second part of the application, the second template, is the simplified business plan. The purpose is obviously for applicant to provide information to complement the calculator that is a bit dry otherwise. So it serves to add values and credibility and to check also the consistency in between the simplified business plan and the other parts of the application, namely Part B. Again, as a forward, we use a consolidated approach. So therefore, if you feel that any project or set of projects are not homogeneous, like for example, they do not follow the same business model, or they do not obviously follow the same objective in broad terms, then the requirement is to duplicate the template. So use, for example, if you have an educational project and a transport project, for example, all bundle, then you should use actually 2 simplified business plan templates. That will be for ease of readability. Make sure when you address the questions to follow the same, to address the question in the same order as in the question box, avoiding repetition. Now, as I said, the simplified business plan follows a one-size-fits-all, which in some cases gives the impression that it goes very far in terms of granularity of explanation required. So, but the reason for that is that we wanted to have to provide flexibility to applicants. So when the applicant feels that he has relevant and detailed explanation, then there is a place to provide such explanation. If this is not the case, i.e. if the question is not relevant, just put not applicable with a clear justification why you feel the question is not applicable to your project or set of project. It's perfectly okay to say not applicable if the question is not relevant to your specific situation. Next. So as you may expect, in the Simplified Business Plan, there are several sections. I'm going to go through that quickly. First, and quite important, the demand analysis. So of course, in the application form Part B, you need to provide analysis of needs, users. But here, we ask to go a bit further. We want to see some quantitative projection of demand. We want to check that you know what is the number of users for the service that a given project is going to serve. So that's important. Maybe you can start by the overall population and then to have to go down in terms of granularity, in terms of users, and also to project according to the projection for the overall population. This is just to check that, of course, there is a demand for the project that you want to implement. The second part is the investment cost, and here I bundled actually 3 sections: investment costs, operating expenses, and revenues. Here, what we are interested to see is actually more details about the evaluation method that you have retained. How did you determine the investment cost? Or did you use any benchmark? Were there internal benchmark? Are these benchmarks identified? It's good to have benchmark, but it's not so good if the benchmarks are not clearly identified and with a vintage date, for example, and also the breakdown by stakeholders when there are several. The sensitivity analysis, we look at it. It's also the place where you can cover or provide your risk analysis and the mitigants. So don't pay too much attention to the sensitivity analysis as such, but use this box to analyze the factors that would, let's say, trigger a great variation in terms of FNP, for example. And that is mostly related to the demand analysis. So this is where you can use the tool and provide information about the sensitivity to the demand, for example, and the risk and the mitigants. Last, there is a section on the significance of the grant component. What we want to see here is actually what was the catalytic effect of the grant? Was it a game changer or not? So to start with, we are interested to see a description of the financial or budgetary constraint that hamper, in the absence of the grant, the project or your access to third-party financing. So we want to see, what are the existing situation from a financial and budgetary perspective, and how you feel and why you feel that the grant will relax or these constraints. The second objective is in terms of debt financing. We want, obviously, that you can explain how your organization customarily finance its other project and explain against this background, i.e. the let's say the base case, how the requested PSLF grant has contributed to mobilize third-party financing on terms that would not have been accessible without such a grant. So again, we are interested in this section, significance of the grant, to understand how the grant helped to relax the budgetary and financial constraint, and for that we need to know what is the current state of play, and if it really helped making financing accessible on better terms. So that's what we want to see with significance of the grant. Now, with the next slide, please. I want to, let's say, go over frequent shortcoming, mistake, and guidance. Actually, do not bother about shortcoming, mistakes, but consider this guidance and tips. So with regard to the Simplified business plan, what we've seen is that some analysis, some demand analysis are too light, and they are not quantitative. So again, the demand analysis must be complemented by must be a quantitative analysis, estimating, projecting the number of users, and explaining assumptions for projections. What we have also seen is that capital injections are not sufficiently supported, so please support it. You can make reference to public procurement, but when public procurement, that is a requirement, is not complemented with other data, quotes for the procurement, or benchmark, or just there is just reference to internal practices, it provides, in our view, insufficient credibility. The revenues, and here the advice is to express, when it's possible, to give credibility, to express the revenue, and in some cases the OPEX as well, as the product of demand, i.e. the volume and the price for such services. Some mistakes in the calculator that we have seen. yes, select for each tab a reference period as per the guidance and in this tab. So the reference period is different, as Daria mentioned, from the project life. It covers the construction, i.e. implementation, and as well the operational periods. So there is guidance in these tabs. There are links as well that you can use. Second point is that, yes, the net revenues are defined as incremental revenues, net of incremental operating expenses. So incrementals means that avoiding, for example, expenses requires a minus so that actually they produce increased revenues. So for example, energy savings are actually should be expressed in an incremental manner. And of course, and same for, let's say, operational expenses. So that actually a decrease of this, or increase of energy savings or decrease of operational expense are actually equal to added revenues in the end. Common mistakes that we've seen: operational expenses do not include input related to financing structure. So do not include interest or repayment of debt in the operational expenses. And similarly, revenue does not include receipt of loans or drawdown of grants. So what we are interested in these calculators and in these calculators is anything related to the project, but not necessarily related to the financing of the project, at least in the input sheets. Otherwise, it will actually produce a wrong result in the financial analysis, i.e. Incorrect result in terms of financial net present value. So the guidance, final guidance, is obviously to read all the facts. The position and the mistakes above are actually expressed or have been addressed in the frequently asked questions. And also, it's important to read the calculator notice first. And a strong advice is obviously to have the calculator and the business plan proofread by a financial officer. Now, I have a couple of slides just to give you a snapshot of what the calculator looks like. You should be, some of you may be familiar with that. So that's a snapshot of the notice. I'm not going to go through that. Maybe next slide. So it really goes into details, for example, in terms of reference period, in terms of what are the costs, investment costs to be encoded, making distinction here, as highlighted in yellow, in between costs already incurred at the time of the application and costs that will be incurred after that. Then the budget table, of course, application date. And that's just, you just need to make sure that the resource side and the use of funds side, they both tally. For this purpose, if they don't tally, then of course there will be let's say a signal, and there will be a rig signal indicating that they do not tally. And this is why we want, because the model is kind of protected. And yes, there are some kind of quality checks in terms of error-free. So if there is a mistake in encoding, then it will signal a mistake and it will block the system. So you need to correct the mistake to proceed. Next slide. Well, this is the input slide. So you can see that there are many rows here for the initial investment. You can use them for already occurred cost and next cost to occur. And yes, you can see different colors. Only the colors in blue can be changed for the reason I mentioned. So that was just to give you an highlight, an overview of what the calculator looks like. It's not rocket science, but if you do have questions about it, of course, you can use the frequently asked question. I've addressed 2 questions already about those 2 templates, but I'm happy to go over them again. Thank you for your attention and good luck.
Now, I think, Borislava, it's...
Yes, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Last but not least, the PSLF advisory and how it can support you along the way. I'm really very happy to address you today here at the PSLF Info Day. As you found out, actually, the EIB group supports all three pillars of the Just Transition mechanism through lending, blending, and advising. And Matteo already presented to you the lending part with the main features and requirements, and Isabel, Daria, Sabine, and Gautier took you through the details of the PSLF grant and the application process. I will try to present you how the advisory offer can really support you along the way. Under the Invest EU Advisory Hub, we have a dedicated envelope for PSLF advisory, and this is the financial resource we use to provide free of charge support to public sector promoters in any of the aspects of their projects based on their specific needs. So EIB Advisory offers comprehensive support to PSLF projects at every stage, ensuring that promoters receive tailored assistance from the earliest concept to the project completion. So this support, as you can see, includes upstream advisory, which is aimed at creating an enabling environment through policy and program advice or preliminary project assistance. We do a lot of project preparation support, where we provide technical and financial advice. We do pre-feasibility and feasibility studies, different kinds of analysis. We identify certain decarbonization options as well for the projects. And the last stage, we support with implementation advisory, where we advise on project execution, enhanced monitoring, review of project documentation, and we provide ongoing support as needed. And in order to create the right conditions for successful projects through hands-on support on the ground and dissemination of best practices, we provide this capacity building, which is actually a separate activity that can happen at any time of the project cycle, regardless of the readiness of the projects themselves. So our approach is quite flexible and adapts to the individual needs of each promoter, leveraging in-house expertise and also external expertise when needed. Ultimately, the goal is to deliver high-quality projects through easy application procedures and tailored advisory support. At this stage of the PSLF lifetime, I think it's important to note that in order to make sure that we deliver on the promised value-adding experience and to address your needs best, it's sensible to focus more on specific project enhancement aspects, on project implementation support and capacity building. What I mean here is that most likely we will not have enough time to start from scratch developing projects and identifying them. So at this point in time, I think we already need to have certain level of maturity of your project so that we can support you further on. And in order to illustrate what we provide as services, I think it's best to give examples. I will give only a few, even though we have a quite nice portfolio of PSLF advisory assignments in many different countries and covering quite a broad scope in terms of sectors and needs. It's not possible to cover them all, but here we are back to the Czech Republic, which was already given as an example in different aspects, but I think this one is a very good illustration of a combination of capacity building and very specific support related to the PSLF grant application. So Ústí nad Labem seeks to modernize its urban infrastructure, public buildings, social facilities, roads to enhance mobility, while addressing climate goals And we have identified, together with the city administration, the limited experience they have in managing large multi-year investment programs. So strengthening the institutional capacity is actually the cornerstone of this assignment. So we are supporting their project implementation unit in planning and executing a pipeline of approximately 15 projects in different sectors. We're developing a process to track progress, to enhance compliance with EIB requirements and maintain transparency. And ultimately, we are supporting them with some advisory related to their PSLF grant application as well. The next example is to illustrate a very comprehensive work we're doing in Bulgaria. We've had an early on assignment that we can classify as upstream, which identified high priority projects to be developed and implemented in Bulgaria. And through the current assignment, we are building on this groundwork and we are aiming to unlock the PSLF grant and structure a loan from the EIB to mature and implement fast-track projects to be actually delivered in the next 2-3 years. So this technical assistance is actually designed to ensure timely development of these priority projects and to provide the necessary institutional capacity at the promoter to support the structuring, financing, and implementation process. So it's really comprehensive, longer term, divided in different tasks, and it's a very good illustration of almost all the advisory support we can provide to you. The next example brings us to Slovakia, where we have supported 2 framework loan operations that are addressing socioeconomic challenges and infrastructure gaps in Košice and Banska Bystrica. And there, these framework loans cover quite a broad variety of sectors. They address sustainable mobility issues, education and skills, social care, culture and heritage. So they actually cover a multitude of sub-projects. For example, in Banska Bystrica region, we're talking about a portfolio of 94 projects. But our support there is targeting the PSLF grant application process, and we are providing some hands-on support locally to the local administration to actually enhance their PSLF grant application. And the last example I will give, is from our really very comprehensive work in Romania, where we completed an intermediated municipal lending study. The goal of this study was to actually show us what's the demand for sub-sovereign administrative units to borrow for financing their investment projects through intermediated and blended financial instruments, including the PSLF. So what we did there, we assessed the potential demand, and then we mapped the existing national and EU support schemes to figure out how they can work together, or if there are any conflicts and they have to be excluded from one and the same project. We evaluated the borrowing capacity of these sub-sovereign borrowers in line with the applicable regulations. We identified also along the way their capacity building needs, and we managed to generate a preliminary pipeline of PSLF eligible projects. So what is happening now as a result of this study, we are appraising as a bank lending operation, an intermediated one, and we are also at the final stages of structuring advisory support for the final beneficiaries. And to conclude, just would like to give you some insights into what comes next, apart from the bilateral assignments. So these assignments that we have an individual client and we have specific advisory needs, we structure our assistance along the lines of these needs to address them better. But also we are working horizontally a lot and this means that we cover all eligible regions through larger scale assignments. So we have 2 such assignments coming next year. We already finalized the structuring, and we are practically almost ready to launch them on the ground. One of them is covering the first 3 vertical bars, and what we want to achieve there is the following. We would like to continue supporting on the ground all the eligible applicants for the PSLF grant with some additional events dedicated to the second call, so complementing this info day, but on the ground locally. And also we would like to make sure that if there are any PSLF eligible projects still out there, we are able to get them, to find out more about them, and to have a very clear pipeline of such projects. We will be working a lot in the countries which so far have not demonstrated a very strong interest in the PSLF for one or the other reason. And that is why we will be identifying what are the barriers for the PSLF uptake in such countries. We will try also to actually overcome some of these barriers if that's feasible with simple solutions if possible, because we are also conscious of time and resources available. And the other, what we call horizontal assignment, is very specific. It is structured to make us more efficient and fast in delivering support linked to the PSLF grant application process. It's a way for us internally also to be able to address such needs better, because usually the promoters, the clients, they come to us with such requests last minute. So we have our internal process as well, which I will just very quickly summarize here, but just to illustrate that we also have a lot of work to do internally. This takes time, even if we're very fast. So the earlier you approach us, the better, because this will give us sufficient time to properly understand and address your advisory needs. So with that, I thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
Thank you very much, Borislava. So that brings us to the end of the presentations. Now we have time for to reply some of the questions you have raised. We have seen you were quite active on Slido, so thank you very much for all the questions we received. And I suggest we try to reply as many as possible. So maybe starting with Sabine. Sabine, would you like to pick up some of the questions?
Yes, thank you, Lucy. Well, I will concentrate on those that were not replied by the moderator in Slido and are not replied in the presentations. So we had some questions on if specific sectors would be eligible or not. It's difficult for us to say at this stage which sector or which activity is eligible upfront. What I would like to say is that, well, what is for sure, that it has to be linked to what is foreseen in the territorial just transition plans. So if this is foreseen in just territorial transition plans, it is also eligible for us. It has to be demonstrated how it contributes to the plan and how it contributes to the just transition. Only one specification, we cannot finance projects that are involving fossil fuels, so this has to be kept in mind. So there are some specificities about that, but I think there's also specific Q&A on that available. Then there was a question on what are the eligible expenses, studies, engineering, land works, etc. So I would like to repeat again that we are in a financing not linked to cost scheme. So we are not looking at a specific cost. costs of the project. So we, and the grant component is a fixed percentage of the EIB loan. So normally what falls within the scope of the EIB loan is eligible for us, and we will then do, well, the grant will be then the percentage of the loan amount. The state aid regulation applied to projects applying to the public sector loan facility. Yes, state aid rules apply. However, the PSLF grant as such is dispersed directly by the union and therefore does not represent aid provided by a member state. We are not doing specific checks on state aid, but okay, you need to comply with the rules. Then there was a question, are social housing providers among the eligible organizations? So here I would like to repeat so that the eligible entities are public entities or private entities with a public mission. So if the social housing provider is a private entity with a public mission, it could be, they are eligible, but it has to be demonstrated, and Daria explained in our presentation also how this has to be demonstrated. Is there a selection criteria that gives preference to less developed regions? So it was also explained there is a bonus point for less developed regions. Then there was a question on so the local authorities were not able to participate in the first round of the calls, but would like to now apply in the second call. So if the first part, well, the previous part would be eligible, so this is about retroactive projects. We can accept retroactive projects, but okay, it has to be justified. Why they are retroactive, and they should not be completed before we sign the grant agreement. This is also an important element. And here I would also like to say that they are assessed on a case-by-case basis. Then there is a question on how is the own contribution covered. So how should it be financed? Can it be from RRF, for example? RRF is not eligible. So the PSLF regulation excludes co-financing from other union sources of funding. So all other union funds are excluded. So if your project is financed by another fund, it's not eligible under PSLF. I'm going to link it immediately to another question that we received. If, for example, you have a project which part has been financed under another fund, and you can distinct clearly the components of the project, so it can be completely separately, also under the loan, then of course the other component could be financed by PSLF. Okay, this has to be explained again very clearly in the application. And then from to complete it cannot be financed with other union funds, but the other own resources are not specified, so it can be from national resources, commercial loans, or also the modernization fund that is eligible. Then there was a question on what is exactly meant by the decarbonization plan. So a decarbonization plan outlines how an organization or a public entity intends to reduce its carbon emissions and transition to a low carbon economy. There is no fixed template for it or no features. So as if there is a plan available, you should submit it. And what you can also do is use the National Energy and Climate Plan if the applicant can clearly explain how does the project deliver to these NECP objectives. Then there was also a question on the maturity of projects. So indeed, we encourage you to use advisory, and if it could be supported by other mechanisms like ELENA or LIFE advisory. So we encourage you to make use of the dedicated PSLF advisory, which is free of charge. Because also the PSLF advisory under the InvestEU Advisory Hub knows all very well the specificities of the PSLF, so this is an added value. But okay, if your project has been or received technical assistance finance from other union resources, sources of funding, it's no problem. It's also, we are not going to look at it, and it's not an evaluation criteria. So we encourage you to do it, but if you don't, okay, but it's certainly an added value if you do. It can make your chances to pass the evaluation bigger. So thank you for your attention. So I pass now the floor to CINEA colleagues for the next set of questions.
So now concerning, we have a few questions on retroactivity and the duration. So maybe about the duration of the project, in the call document, you will see that there is a recommendation for projects to be implemented between 24 and 60 months. And as it was mentioned this morning, you can deviate from this as long as there is a clear justification. So it can be shorter than 24 months or longer than 60 months, but we need to have a clear explanation in the proposal. And if you do that, of course, that links to the questions on retroactivity. So yes, it is possible for a project to have already started before you submit your grant application. You have to clearly explain in the proposal then what has already been implemented and what still remains to be implemented. And as what was mentioned also by Sabine a few minutes ago, you have to demonstrate that there is still a significant amount of activities, tasks to still be implemented, because by the time the evaluation is finished, your project proposal is selected, that we prepare the grant agreement. If when we are ready to sign the grant agreement, we realize that actually 90% of your project is already done and completed, we cannot sign then the grant agreement. So that's where you have to also link it, and I see some of the questions. The scope of the loan can be, of course, broader than the scope of the PSLF grant, as long as there is a link that the project under which you apply for the PSLF grant fits within the loan scope. It's not an issue. And here also in terms of calculations and the questions on the cost, human costs, human resources, as Sabine said, we are financing not linked to cost. So of course, to calculate the budget and to fill in the simplified business plan, the calculator, you have to mention the costs of your specific projects for which you apply for the grant, and it can cover human resources, it can cover all sorts of different elements. So you have to be realistic and in calculating your budget. The costs have to be linked to the project, but we are not asking for a detailed breakdown, and we will not check these costs during the implementation of the project if your proposal is selected. We are interested in making sure that the lump sums amount that will be defined in the grant agreement, basically, and that are linked to objectives, that you meet the objectives and that the activities, the work packages that will be described are fully implemented. So as long as you demonstrate this, then the project will be considered fully implemented. If obviously there are issues during implementation, that's where we will have to decide and to assess what is the completion rate of the project. But as long as you meet the objectives that you have described in your proposal and on the basis of which it will be selected and the grant agreement will be signed, it should be, it's for you to demonstrate that the project was fully implemented in line with the grant agreement. And also maybe to come back, there was also a question on whether or not all the individual or sub-projects in a framework loan need to be fully described. So there are indeed limitations to the number of words or characters that you have to meet in the different parts of the application. Therefore, indeed, it can be a challenge for a framework loan, for a proposal submitted under the framework loan topic that would cover maybe a set of 10, 15 individual projects, as we've had seen already. So in that case, what we recommend is that in the core of the proposal, in part A, part B, you basically describe the project as a whole, mentioning these 10 and 15 projects in very brief term, but you include as an annex a more detailed, be it an Excel file or a Word document that provides a bit more explanation on each project at individual level. This you can do. You can upload whatever document you think is appropriate to substantiate your project proposal. Also, as what was referred by Sabine, when you upload documents such as a decarbonization plan, please explain in your proposal how this decarbonization plan is linked to your project. Because it's not just a matter of uploading it, it's also a matter of explaining how this relates to your project. Then I don't know what other, let's see. If you did not, if somebody rejected previous call, yes. So if you had applied under the first call and your proposal was rejected, it is fine to apply under the second call. Each proposal is actually evaluated on its own merit. It's not because you failed the first time that you will be penalized if you reapply. No, each proposal is reassessed completely independently. And you can apply, as many times as you wish under different cutoff dates. There are no limitations, no penalization if your previous proposals were not selected. In case you had indeed a proposal not selected under a previous cutoff, please, if you resubmit the same proposal, please make sure that you address the comments that you had received and that explain why you were not selected. So please make sure that you address the weaknesses that were identified for your first proposal, and also make sure that if the project has evolved in comparison with the first time when you submitted it, that you update the information and you check whether or not there is still a part that needs to be completed. Because if obviously your project by now has been fully completed, as we have explained, we will not be able to basically sign the grant agreement. So this you have to pay attention to. Yes. So also the questions related to basically if the loan with the EIB is already signed before or at the time you submit your proposal. So this is not a factor that is going to penalize you. It's, you know, if you have a loan which is already signed, then you should clearly indicate this status in your proposal. And then, of course, what we want to make sure and what will be checked with the EIB is the connection between this loan and the specific project for which you have applied for the PSLF grant. And that indeed the amounts that you have used to calculate the PSLF amount that you requested is indeed the correct amount. Also, if you, in terms of having a loan already signed, it's not a problem. The same if the loan has not been signed, if it's under appraisal, or if you have just started negotiations, or if you have just approached the EIB or the advisory hub, then you just need to mention it in your proposal. Also, we see sometimes that applicants attach as an additional document a non-binding commitment letter from the National Promotional Bank with which they are discussing the loan, which is good. So you can do that. As long as the information is clear and that you specify in case the loan covers a bigger part than the PSLF grant, it's perfectly fine. We just want to have as much clarity as possible on these different aspects. Then I think that's it.
Yeah, Matteo Borislava, would you like to come in on any of the questions?
Yes, of course. So I'll start with the first one. I would say not an easy question to reply on my feet, but let's say the question is, should this EIB loan be counted when calculating the municipality's borrowing limits? And I would say yes, in principle, as the EIB loan is a loan, so it's a liability. It should be recorded as such in the balance sheet. Hence, it should be counting as, say, an overall debt in the overall debt limit of the borrower. I think the logic is that the borrower should take care of discussing with its own budget administration about this detail and see if there is any specific item that does not make this EIB loan in the aggregate lending capacity, or I mean something similar. But honestly, this is a question that I would just send back and say, please check with your budget administration in case possible. The second question is if the call, is the call states that the EIB or intermediary loan may not exceed 50% of the total project cost. Does total project cost refer specifically to eligible CapEx items, works, equipment, studies are directly related to project implementation? So I think it's two parts of this question. So the first one is normally, as we discussed today, 50% is the limit applicable to the project cost that the EIB considers, but considering the EIB board orientation and support to just transition that I anticipated earlier, the EIB loan can exceed this threshold in specific cases, and notably if the projects are implemented in EIB cohesion priority regions. Then The other point concerns the type of project costs that are present in a given project. And it's not just about CapEx for the EIB due diligence. I mean, there is, I would say, there are elements of costs that have to be taken out of projects. Normally, what I would refer to is land purchase costs or VAT. These costs are normally not eligible for EIB costs, but the rest of the costs being CapEx or OpEx, so capital expenditures or operating expenditures like salaries and stuff like that, these are normally considered eligible by the EIB if they align to the purpose of the project, and of course they are instrumental to the implementation of it. Yeah, I think that would be it for this question. The other question is what are the conditions to apply for advisory? And I think I would go for it. No conditions. Borislava, please.
Yeah, that's the easy answer. But indeed, there are no conditions for applying for our advisory support. For us, it's important that you get in touch either through the InvestEU Central Advisory Hub Central portal, or directly approach us through any contact you have at the EIB, because this will really make the communication much faster. We get requests from our colleagues in lending through their interactions with their clients on the ground, from our projects, colleagues from the projects directorate who are doing the loan appraisal on the technical side. So there are many ways to reach us. It's easy, it's very straightforward, and we don't have any conditions. Based on our agreement with the Commission, the advisory services for the public sector promoters are entirely free of charge, and this is very important, I think, and this is very important for you to know. So make use of this resource.
Okay, and then we move on with the next one that feels a bit like a curiosity question. So the grant application can be prepared in parallel to the loan preparation? Well, okay, this one is a true one, and I would say, of course, yes, it can be. As we mentioned during the presentation, the loan request and actually a loan appraisal has to be ongoing. So for us to confirm to CINEA that the loan amount actually, so that a project exists, that the project has requested a loan to the EIB, and the amount of the loan that is requested. So that's pretty much what is needed at a certain point. Therefore, yes, parallel, fine, but we have to be aware of what the project is, we, the EIB, so that we can interact with CINEA. And then the way to find out if anyone is currently in the loan application process so they can be encouraged to apply to the grant. The way to find out is through the EIB.org website, whereby we normally publish projects that are to be financed, so not already approved or signed, but also in a advanced stage of appraisal. So this is one way to figure out. The next question is what are the eligible loan durations? A very important question. This one is concerning basically, so loan duration is a proxy of the economic life of the projects or investments to be financed. So what the EIB does through the technical due diligence is to appraise the goods or the projects or whatever, the investments to be financed, and calculates or estimates the economic life of these investments. Of course, this is not the only element that is taken into consideration. There is also the financial profile of the borrower or the potential borrower, and other elements and conditions that arise from the financial due diligence and from the risk management practices that the bank puts in place in the financing of any of its projects and proposals that then are analyzed and hopefully approved by our governing bodies. I hope it's clear. And another question for advisory here, would it be possible to receive support from the European Commission in completing the financial documents?
Well, I'm not sure how to exactly address this question, but I think that we gave a very good overview already of which areas we can support with our advisory assistance. And in terms of developing documents, we really need to know what exactly is needed, some technical information about the project, some other aspects of the project cycle preparation or the grant application, of course. So on our end, I don't think we can limit and count all of these documents, but in general, so advisory support is available. It's under the InvestEU Advisory Hub, and it comes from a dedicated envelope for the PSLF.
I think there is another one, probably. New one.
Yes, referring to the advisory support, does EIB prefer to be in contact only with the applicant or special advisors of the latter as well? Well, it's generally the goal is to maximize the output and to reach the specific objective of any assignment. So we are happy to cooperate and to work with anybody who is involved. So if there are other advisors who are already working with the applicant, of course, there is no problem for us to be in touch with them. But our relationship and our advisory service agreement is signed with the applicant practically, so with the client. And then all the rest is second tier of relationships and communication.
I think we are done on our side.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. I think there were also a couple of questions related to the financial information. Gauthier, would you like to take them?
So, yes, can you show the question, please? It's here on the screen. No, I don't see it on the screen. The first. Yes. Okay, then I see it. If we apply, so I read the question. If we apply to framework loan with different projects, do we have to use, I guess, one business plan for each project, or a single loan, a single one for all? So the answer to this question, in my view, is the following. If all the projects that you have included in your applications are homogeneous, that is, if they follow, let's say, same business model and same broad priorities, then you can use obviously one template in a business plan. However, if the projects are different in terms of business models or priorities, for example, you have an educational project and a transport project, as I said, then it's required to use two templates for ease of readability of the information provided. Next question, I think that there was another one. The depreciation, that was one question about depreciation that I can address now. Okay, yes. Given that this is a lump sum grant, can the total cost of the investment be eligible to the project, or only the part of the cost that falls within the project period? And here the question is complemented by a tip. I am referring to depreciation. So I understand the question whether depreciation should have an impact on the amount of the total cost of the investment, and i.e. on the lump sum grant. The answer to this question is no. The costs of the investment are determined on the basis of historical cost. So if these historical costs have been depreciated, the depreciation will have no effect on the amount of the investment cost. And just as a reminder, depreciation is not a cash item, so it's not part of the operating expenses either. The only way that depreciation is relevant is that it will influence the residual value, i.e. that is a potential income. So that's the only way and the other, only reason why depreciation can be relevant.
Okay, thank you very much, Gauthier. So there were a few more questions. As I said before, we will not be able to reply all the questions now because we have, I would say, more or less 10 minutes left, but we will try to reply in writing, and if necessary, we would also publish a new Q&A, which you will find available on the website. But maybe last word on a few more questions, which I think were quite relevant. Isabel, please, could you?
Okay, yes, thank you. So the first question about, I would like to ask how permissible it is to change the budget of a project or the project itself after the loan has been signed during implementation. Is this acceptable to the bank or to CINEA? By what procedure can this be done? So I think concerning the loan, I'm obviously under the supervision of Matteo and Borislava, but there are conditions that would probably need to be fulfilled. So I would not comment on this, but you have to be aware, if there is a change in the loan amount that has been awarded, then that means this will have an impact on the grant amount because it's calculated as a fixed percentage of the loan amount. So if during the implementation of the loan something happens and the loan amount has to be reduced, then we would be informed by the EIB, and therefore we would do an amendment to the grant agreement concerning the project that is financed under PSLF, and the grant amount would be reduced accordingly because it's a maximum amount that we award, and that doesn't mean at the end that this is the amount that you will receive if, for different reasons, the loan amount has been reduced or if the project has not been fully implemented. Then for the next question...
Isabel, if I may hear just a single second, is the fact that, for example, in framework loans, let's say schemes, it is quite, I would say, normal that there are changes because these are not mature projects. Therefore, as long as the scheme, as we discussed now several times, as long as the scheme is part of the same eligibility, like the same sector of activity, then the scheme should be communicated to the EIB, as well as, of course, to CINEA, and we undergo a quick technical appraisal to make sure that it is in line, of course, with the eligibility elements of the framework loan itself. And that's the procedure under which, let's say, it is possible to change maybe not the amount of the loan, but just replace the scheme with another scheme. So there's this type of flexibility, and of course it entangles a number of considerations, but just to put it simple for today, it is like that.
Indeed, thank you, Matteo, for adding these elements. Then the next question, if some of the annexes connected to the application is not filled in correctly, does it automatically mean that the project proposal is rejected? The answer is no. It doesn't mean that it is automatically rejected. There is a difference to be made between, obviously, making sure that you submit with your project proposal all the mandatory annexes. And here, if they are not submitted and that they are mandatory, it is indeed a reason to be rejected and to be considered inadmissible. But if you have passed the stage of admissibility, eligibility, and then you go to the technical evaluation and we realize that mistakes have been made, there is a difference between, let's say, making arithmetical mistakes that we can correct because there is enough information in the proposal to make these corrections, and we do them in order to reach a relevant conclusion. However, if there is, the proposal lacks information, lacks clarity, and we cannot, correct these mistakes that we see, then you will be penalized under the quality award criterion. So then, depending on which final score you get, if you get the passing score of 6, it's fine. If you get 5 or below, then your proposal then will not be retained for funding. So that will be the issue. And I think... yes. Which institutions monitors the... is responsible for the implementation of the project. So for the loan component, clearly the European Investment Bank. For the grant component, it will be CINEA. You will have a dedicated project manager that will be your contact point for the grant agreement preparation, and then for the monitoring of the implementation, where you will have regular contacts and exchanges to basically follow the deliverables, milestones that will be defined in the grant agreement that you will already have mentioned in your proposal. And then also there will be on-site visit to basically verify the completion of your project as per the grant agreement. So that will definitely be CINEA responsible for the monitoring of your project during its implementation.
Thank you, Isabel. So we are reaching the end of this info day. I hope you find all the information useful. And indeed here on the slide you can see all the relevant information. So both the, let's say, general legal framework, you have also the relevant information from the EIB and advisory support. And you also have the links to the call for proposals and to the EU funding tender portals, call document, FAQs, which already exist and which remain valid also for the second call for proposals. And as I said, if we see there are new questions coming either from today's info day or which you can always submit to the functional mailbox, we would prepare a new FAQ as needed. So we will also publish the info day session online. This will be done, I suppose, after a few days. It will be available on the same portal where you registered for the info day, in case you would like to come back to some of the elements we discussed this morning. And of course, you can also follow all what we do in CINEA on the different social media platforms. So that's the very last slide of today. And I would like to thank all the speakers warmly for the information they provided to our colleagues from EIB who came from Luxembourg, and to everyone else who worked on preparing this info day. So thank you very much and have a good day.